After months of talk about what would happen with the Blazers' 23rd overall pick, with a lot of people expecting it to be traded to the Chicago Bulls for Portland's first-round picks back, Portland ended up using that pick and selecting Kris Murray, brother of Keegan Murray, out of the University of Iowa. With Keegan being looked at as the better brother, considering he was taken with the 4th overall pick last year and had a solid rookie season for the Sacramento Kings, but Kris Murray is no slouch either, as in his junior season at the University of Iowa, had a major uptick in performance. In his sophomore season, he only started one game, averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist, but then once Keegan left, Kris turned into a star. His junior year, he averaged 20 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists, on 58% shooting from 2 and 33.5% shooting from 3. Now this 3-point percentage was better as a sophomore, where he shot almost 39%. As his junior year, he had a super high usage rate, and he was tasked with generating a ton of Iowa's offense. And now that he's headed into the NBA, I expect Kris Murray to play the role that he did more of his sophomore year. And while I don't think you can assume that Kris Murray will be a good NBA player right off the bat because Keegan was, doesn't mean that they don't have a lot of similarities. Keegan is looked at as a smart role player heading into the league, a guy that can play on both sides of the floor. He should be able to guard 3s and 4s, and although I think guards will be a little too quick for him at the NBA level, I hope that he's not going to be a guy that gets burnt defending backcourts. Keegan's a left-handed player and loves driving to that left hand. He uses his body well on drives and honestly has to rely upon that, as he's not the quickest player and he's not a guy that's going to blow by anyone or really shake anyone off with a crossover. Kris Murray's game is very simple. He's a guy that will knock down 3s, try and get to the rim off closeouts, try and make the right play, isn't going to play too sped up, will rebound the ball and play some defense. That sounds like the ideal backup power forward for the Portland Trail Blazers. As far as his upside goes, I don't think he's a guy that will ever truly become a star player, or even a guy that's going to become a great starter, but I think Kris Murray's floor is that of a rotation player on a solid team right away. He's one of those high floor, low ceiling types of guys, and if Portland is trying to win basketball games next year with Damian Lillard still in town, then Kris Murray makes a ton of sense as the backup power forward behind Jeremy Grant. That was a role that I said the Blazers need to fill heading into the season and that they could probably fill with the 23rd overall pick, and I think they did that in such a hypothetical with Kris Murray. But the problem is that route isn't exactly likely. It's not likely that the Blazers are trying to win games next year. It's not likely that Damian Lillard will be a Blazer next year. And that's where I really questioned this pick when it was made on draft night. If you're there in our draft live stream, thank you for tuning in. But with the Blazers going down a path that I think will result in Damian Lillard asking out, I wanted the Blazers to swing for a little bit more of that upside at the 23rd overall pick. I think players going to certain situations and certain teams matters a lot in the NBA draft. Kris Murray should be on a team that's trying to win basketball games next year. I could see him being an 8th or a 9th man on a team that wins 50 games and playing a role that way, and then maybe growing into being a borderline starter. But for the Blazers going the rebuild route, I did like Leonard Miller's upside at 23, and that's who I was hoping the Blazers would take. We'll see if Leonard Miller ends up being a better NBA player. He ended up in Minnesota with the 33rd pick. I thought Miller was slept on way too much in this draft process. But that's where my grade and my feelings on the Kris Murray pick will come down to what the direction of this Blazers team is. Of course, Kris could prove me wrong and maybe be a starting caliber player right away. We saw Keegan do it, so why can't Kris do it? But it would require him being a better 3-point shooter than he was in his last year at Iowa. If he comes into the league and only shoots 33-34%, he's probably not going to be rotation worthy. His ability to really do anything else offensively is dependent upon him knocking down 3s. He'll be able to post up and score inside against smaller players and be able to get buckets here or there just out of the flow of things, but I think it is really crucial for Kris to be able to knock down 3s at a decent clip. And it's also interesting to compare him to Jabari Walker. I think Kris is a slightly better version of Jabari Walker, and I think drafting Kris shows that the Blazers aren't exactly confident in Jabari Walker becoming a rotation player in the next couple of years. Of course, that should be no surprise. He was taken with the second to last pick in the NBA draft, and it's not like the Blazers will just get rid of Jabari. However, there was people expecting him to be able to be a part of a rotation in the next couple of seasons. Murray and Walker are both power forwards. They're both guys that 2 years before they entered the draft shot a great 3-point ball. Jabari Walker shot 52% his freshman year, and Kris shot 39% his sophomore year. But then in their final years before the draft, Jabari Walker's 3-point percentage dipped down to 34% when he was playing like more of the star, and the same thing happened with Kris. where his three-point percentage dipped down to 33% when Keegan left and he became the star. But there was the expectation that Jabari Walker's three-point percentage would maybe be even better in the NBA than it was in college, because he wasn't taking the best three-point shots his sophomore year. His role was going to be a little bit closer to what it was his freshman season, where he shot 23 for 44 from behind the three-point line. That's a wild percentage, making more than half of them. But this season, Jabari Walker shot 28.6% from three. It was not good. And he was not a guy that could help the Blazers win because he wasn't knocking down enough three-point shots. It'll be interesting to compare Kris to Jabari in this way. I expect Kris to be a much better three-point shooter than Jabari Walker was last year, but it is interesting how their shooting trended the same direction the last couple years of college, and now they're both on the same team. That's just some food for thought next year comparing these two guys. But I expect Kris to be at least an average NBA three-point shooter, but I think he kind of has to be. It just remains to be seen what direction this Portland Trail Blazers team is headed in. If they go the rebuild route, you could see Kris Murray starting for the Blazers next season. And at this point, I am expecting this team to go the rebuild route, and I'm expecting Damian Lillard to be in a different uniform. But I'll save that for another video. Anyway, thank you for watching this one. I'll have another video on Ryan Rupert coming up soon. If you missed the one I dropped on Scoot Henderson, check that out as well. And with that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.